All right, Mama, let's do this. All right, so we are going to look at non-inventory starships. Okay, so we got some very big ships, some Star Destroyer-sized ships, some ships over here amongst. Someday this will be a Warhammer or a Aliens RPG board. Some more big ships. We have some Star Trek ships, some Borgs. We have some Star Trek ships, some Federation. Remember, at one point we printed out enough starships to do 10% of Operation Return from Star Trek DS9, which is about 78 Federation ships and 150 Dominion ships. We'll get there. Here are some Warhammer ships, including some Orc ships. Here's a 28 millimeter scale starship in front of some very fancy dudes. Here's another 28 millimeter scale starship. This is 700 millimeters long. Here's some assortment of starships. Here is another assortment of starships, including some Mass Effect ships. All right. Here's a 28 millimeter scale Not Rocinante. Here is a Cardassian Dreadnought. Here is a 28 millimeter scale Lat, which is the Black Hawk for the Clone Wars. Here is a 28 millimeter scale Type S ship from Traveler. It is very big. Very big. There is half of the Starforge from Knights of the Old Republic. Here are some parts for 28 millimeter scale ships, and some parts for some 28 millimeter ships, and some parts for some 28 millimeter ships. Here's some, those aren't starships, those are Warhammer dudes. Here are some Klingon ships, including a Negvar, several painted Vorchaz, some Cavort class birds of prey, and lots of Burrell class birds of prey, including ones that are cloaked. Here's some miscellaneous ships, including more Vorcha class Klingon ships. We have a giant mess of Cardassian Keldons and Galores and Dominion ships. Here's a 28 millimeter scale fighter and many Jem'Hadar attack ships. Here are some Warhammer 40,000 ships scaled up to, well, that depends on how you say that. Scaled up from the miniature size, but scaled way down for the Star Wars Armada size to look good next to Star Wars Armada ships. This is some Imperial Navy ships and some little Tau ships. All right, we're gonna do Icebox speed run. My wife drinks a lot of ice drinks, or she has in the past. So we have a lot of these boxes to store people in. We have some Babylon 5, some EC3D ships, and some Honor Harrington ships that look like marital aids. Here are some ships from the creator Smite, some ships from Stargate Atlantis, and some Halo ships. Here are some Star Wars ships that have been painted. These are technically inventory masters. There is a whole mess of different kinds of Minbari ships. Some Babylon 5 ships, some space whales, more marital aids, and then some extra ships that have some weird printing defects for Star Wars. All right, we have a really oversized version of the Mandator 4 from The Last Jedi. We have a Bellator Star Dreadnought. We have the Radis, and we have a giant scaled up Star Wars ship, or excuse me, Star Wars station, as well as ships from a creator called Martian Models that makes some pretty awesome miniature starships. Here's a different version of a 28 millimeter starship. Here are a much better, higher detailed version of the ancient ship from Stargate Atlantis. This is actually a line vessel, not a science vessel like the Aurora. Here's a couple 28 millimeter scale worker bees, complete with little claws. Here is an entire bag of ships from Todd Pote, a creator that I have championed on my channel for a long time. And here's a different fleet of his from, he's created several fleets that he sells for pretty cheap on Cold CD. All right, we have a mix of Starship vessels and a couple different vessels. These are the Eudoxans from EC3D and the Kashelic from EC3D. Included in here is lots more Kashelic ships. It's my favorite faction from EC3D. Here's a box of random Star Wars ships. Here are more Star Wars ships. Here are more Star Wars ships and some Mechanicus ships from Warhammer 40,000. There's an official ISD from Star Wars Armada, as well as the Order of the Dark Star from B.W. Reynolds. Brad is a good friend of mine. He lives down the street. There are two more of Brad's factions that he's designed for our tabletop. Here are more Star Wars Trek ships that we'd use for Operation Return. At one point, each of these boxes represented one task group that we would have had players controlling if we ever played Operation Return. Here is a large mess of, looks like some old, outdated Star Destroyers, a CAS from Halo. And if you look in there, there's some ships that the creator Smite designed that are really fun to paint. All right, so we have some Alien Hive ships from One Page Rules, a couple Star Trek ships. That is a old painted version of the, what's it called? The Donager from The Expanse. Here is a ship that B.W. Reynolds installed. There's some more Star Wars ships. There's some Battlestar Galactica Valkyries in there. Ships are from a creator named Charles Owens. He has made some close approximation near ships, I would say IP-friendly versions of ships from Babylon 5, or not Babylon 5 as it were. Here are the Alliance fleet. These ships are mostly unpainted from EC3D. Here are a lot of Babylon 5 ships that are supposed to be post-war Babylon 5 ships, and another of those wonderful Auroras from Stargate SG-1. Here is a resin version of the Psycops, the Psycor mothership. That they supposedly have several of those stationed in hyperspace, because hyperspace makes their talents more talented. Here's a massive amount of ships from B.W. Reynolds. These are the United Texas Republic, and I think that's pretty obvious. There are some not Federation ships from Charles Owens, and my wonderful study on painting ships to look like animals from Charles Owens. Here are some ships from these are one-page rule ships. These are progenitors, renegades, what are those guys called? The boys, the rebels. Here are some fighters from that faction, or these four factions. These factions aren't available, or they're not in the game. Now that they released the new rule set, they switched to their Grimdark Future factions, but some pretty cool ships. Here are some Star Wars ships. There's an MC-80 Liberty variant. There's an MC-90, some Star Trek ships. That looks like a Sulaco, and a tabletop version of a Space Gate for DS9, for Stargate, as well as a 28mm scale fighter from Papaskills. Here are some more ships from Todd Pote, or Googleplex. These were another very fun faction to paint. Here's a very large collection of B.W. Reynolds ships from one specific faction, the CSA. They are fun to paint and fun to print, so we've printed out a lot of them. There are some more Star Wars ships, including some ones that we had featured variants in a YouTube channel. Generally speaking, when a creator releases multiple variants of a single ship, like the Assault Frigate Mark II, we're only featuring one of those in the store, but we want to show them all off in our videos. Here are some more painted Star Wars ships. These are a mix of creators. This is Sussy and O'Neill Creation. Some Warhammer boys. These are all printed Warhammer stuff. Here are some more ships. These are very early prints that we did from Todd Pote. We wouldn't scale ships of his this size anymore, but these ones were a really fun experiment. It's one of the first major videos we did. Here's another faction of his. I think those are Western Alliance ships. Here are mountains of stands that we use when people come over to play games. There are more Star Wars ships, including some ships taken from video games. That's a ship form. I believe that's a chaff for the Empire of the Hand or the Chiss Ascendancy. There's another Chiss Ascendancy ship in there. Lots and lots of old Star Wars ships. These ships, a lot of these ships that are in here were discontinued when we started getting better licenses to print things, so we could actually sell them. All right, we have some dreadnoughts. This is a Viscount dreadnought. This is a much older print of a Viscount dreadnought. Here is, I believe it's not the Night Hammer, I believe it's the Arc Hammer from, what is that? It's not Rogue Squadron, it's an earlier game. It's the game with the cloaked TIE Phantoms. Here's another CAS and another Executor class Star Destroyer. Here's a Subjugator from one of the first seasons of Clone Wars, alongside a very old print of an Eclipse class Super Star Destroyer. Here is the official model for a, what are these called? Nadir Starhawk, which in the Star Wars canon was one of the first ships made by the New Republic from taking apart lots of old Star Destroyers and putting them together. One of these grabbed the Reaper, the Super Star Destroyer that was at the Battle of Jakku, and dragged it to the planet. It was our first draft of the Ethan Leroyth Lucrehulk. We accidentally printed this arm in not mirrored mode, so we have one arm that's upright and one arm that's upside down. All right, we have various Star Destroyers from our channel, or excuse me, our store. These are all ones that were licensed to print. We have a Venator. This is a Tector class, Interdictor class. This is an Imperial 2. Here's a Paleon class. Here's a Victory class with its little missile bays open. Here's another box of Star Wars ships, and a big box of Warhammer 40K Battlefleet Gothic ships. Here's a fun little box. These are a Tau ship, a different version of the Donager, some ships from B.W. Reynolds, some Narn ships. These ships are from the Consortium. These are one of my favorite generic factions. Here's a lot of miscast, discount stuff. This was a version of the Outbound Flight that we mocked up. This was a failed print for a ship when we were still printing Todd Poach ships, ridiculously big, that we kept because it's awesome wreckage, and some other ships that we use as inventory pictures. This is a box of ships that have videos pending on it that we haven't worked on in a little while. Here's a giant container of fighters for the Solo Command video that we're gonna eventually someday shoot. Not strictly starfighters, but here's some Legion scale or 28mm scale starships, including a little dropship boy and some transports. Some Warhammer terrain and Battletech terrain, some 15mm scale tanks, and the unofficial Armada scale Mercury Battlestar, along with some other things like some shadow ships. You can hear the screaming in your mind. Here's a brief inventory look. Remember, we don't keep any big ships in stock. We just keep smaller ships in stock. Here is our big display boy. So we have a Gloriana class ship from Warhammer. We have a different version of the Radis. We have a Pelion. We have a giant elf dreadnought from Warhammer. This is the United Texas Republic space station from B.W. Reynolds. A different Cardassian dreadnought, a Liberator carrier or cruiser. Here is a Centauri starbase, an Elf starbase, a Secular class Star Destroyer, some other ships, a Resurgent class Star Destroyer from the sequel trilogy, a ISD scale Allegiance, it's a big boy. Here's another Gloriana class. Here's a CSO, which is a bigger version of the Halo starship. Here's a Taiga Core class Klingon starbase. Is a little Republic or Imperial starbase. There, back there, you can't really see it, but it's a UNSC Infinity. Here's a couple of stylized Starcraft battle cruisers. Lots of ships from Battlestar Galactica. There's a Borg cube and a little space station on top. And we have another space station. This is actually scaled up 300% from the original file. Some more ships from Todd Pote, some more ships from Todd Pote, some more ships from Todd Pote. These are the alien, these are from EC3D. These are some really cool ships. I think the main spaceship speaks for itself. They're very cool alien carapace-esque ships. And then we have some more Star Trek ships, mishmash of old 3D prints, and space stations, space stations, space stations, and space stations. These are from a variety of people: O'Neill Creations, Todd Pote, a lot of EC3D stuff. Here are some of the Sanhal Rand ships, which you can't really see, from Skullforge, and some modified ones that we did from the Consortium fleet from Hardware Studios. That's an EC3D station. Here are some unofficial ships that are copies of, I believe, the NAC from Full Thrust, and some ships from Fifth Element, and some pirates from Warhammer. Here is a ship from Sins of a Solar Empire, a different version of that Victory Star Destroyer, Avenger carrier from Babylon 5, the X301 or BC301, some more Consortium ships. This destroyer model is probably my favorite Consortium ship, so I've printed a lot of them. Here is a giant box of Star Wars Armada scale Centauri ships, which we'll be revisiting real soon in resin, as we now have a license to print them commercially. This is an emergency box of ships. It's got dice, pens, and stands, enough ships to go play like Full Thrust Light somewhere really quick. Here's a smaller version. This is I think the this is the single time scale version of that earlier space station. Here's some other Star Wars ships. I think these are all Star Wars ships. Nope, wait, there's a Kardashian ship and a Federation broken ship. Some old ships, some old ships, some old ships. And some, those are from a Kickstarter we did for Blitz Studio. Here is the contents of the next giveaway we're doing. It's the largest giveaway we've ever done. It's like $250 worth of starships and stands. When we did our Imperial Star Destroyer ship, we wanted to show the scale of Star Destroyers as we go through. When we ended our ISD variations on the Imperial Star Destroyer video. If you stayed to the end, thanks. Will, yeah, it was kind of a big ask.